Hello, I'm Weston Taylor. I'm here with Brandon Willis, owner of Ranchers Insurance. Brandon, we've got some big changes in PRF this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, about 2 months ago, USDA announced they're going to change the data set that provide the precipitation data to operate the pasture rangeland and forest program. That will take effect for 2027.
There's some just the whole thing's not changing, correct? There's just a couple of little things, but the little things are going to have big impact, right?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty big. If you want to think of it this way, think of PRF as the car.
Okay.
What USDA did is they just switched the old engine out and put a new engine in the car. It changes everything about the program. So, some agents are out there telling clients that, well, they're just changing the data set where we get the precipitation data.
Which is true.
Which is true, but it also misses the entire point.
Right.
We just have a new engine, and it is going to change how, for lack of a better analogy, it's going to change how PRF drives. It is going to change it big time.
So tell us a little bit about these two data sets and the changes it's going to have.
Okay, so since PRF began, they have ran it off a program, a data set that came from NOAA, Climate Prediction Center, CPC, and that worked pretty well. I don't want to suggest it hasn't worked pretty well. I think in the aggregate, the rainfall data has been pretty good, right? But there have been some frustrations, especially recently, I think.
Right.
And for all of USDA's programs that utilize this data, they're switching to a new one that comes from a different part of NOAA called NCEI. And this rainfall, I say rainfall, precipitation data set is more different than you would think it should be, quite frankly.
So that's interesting. This is not a change solely for PRF. This is data sets also changing other USDA products. Correct?
It is, yeah. We'll just talk about PRF today, but yeah, this is not isolated to PRF.
So tell us what the impact on PRF is going to be with the change of this new data set.
Well, the impact's big, and what you have to remember is it's easy to think of that precipitation as what your agent tells you after, if you insure an interval, they call and say, well, it's 80% of normal.
Right.
That is only part of it. What it really impacts is, for insurance, we're going to look at what that data set does. I think it's back to 1951.
Right.
And we're going to estimate, how much would it have paid? And so that new data set, when you switch that old engine out, put a new engine in, it changes the average precipitation for every single grid, for every single interval. It changes how much the insurance costs. And we believe it's going to reduce the cost, the premiums on average, 9% or so. And then, when we start in the next year, it's going to change how much precipitation actually came. It might be a lot, it might be a little, but what I would say from all the analysis we've done, it's more than you would expect.
So the historical numbers that a producer is insuring against, they're changing.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and also that impacts the premium because premiums are based on the historical loss ratios.
Yeah. Yep.
So premiums change, the number that you're insuring against per interval is changing. What do the changes look like?
Well, they're fascinating. So we partnered with some of the people who I think are the best around. People who know crop insurance, who know how USDA,
Right.
kind of comes up with these programs and at least at a high level establishes rates. We worked with them to take the new data set and to kind of estimate how the rates, the cost, if you will be set. And then we took that information and we just mapped the whole United States. And it's been fascinating to see what we found. A few of the high levels, and I'm going to repeat one of them. Premiums we think go down. We think they go down to 85% coverage, probably around 9-10%, right? Out west in particular, and we're going to show some things on the screen here.
Should we take a look at those?
Yeah, let's look at those.
All right, let's throw so this will be the old data set.
Yep. So if you look at this old data set, the last 10 years, those grids that are red tended to pay very frequently, very high amounts. Those that were blue, very rare. Now, you might think, well, if those grids that are red were exponentially drier than all those surrounding them, then that's accurate. And if those that were blue happen to have very wet conditions the last 10 years, then it's all good. That's not the reality. The reality is not that at all. The reality is the data is flawed to some extent. And so when we plug in the new numbers, those the red grids, the grids that maybe paid more than they should have, are gone.
Yeah. What's interesting, if you look at this, you often have a really dark red grid next to not so dark red grid. Maybe not blue, but historically the question has always been, how can two grids that touch each other change that much? Does that happen in this new data set?
No, those go away. The have and the have-nots are definitely, that's gone away. They're much more similar. Those areas that I would argue were uninsurable because it didn't reflect what was happening on the ground. Those blue grids on the screen, those now are areas where I think you can look at insurance now in those grids that possibly, maybe even probably at times we're paying more than they should have. They're gone. I think there are winners and losers in this, and I don't want to suggest that there's not, and I'm not even going to tell you that these numbers are more accurate than the other. I hope they are. I think they are a little bit, but there's losers. This is a big change, and so you've got to reevaluate your PRF policy with that in mind.
So here's the new NCEI data set. Same map, same grids, like you're talking. The car is the same.
Yep.
This is the same grids with the new data set.
It sure runs differently.
You'll notice
it doesn't run red anymore.
There's not as many reds.
Doesn't run blue anymore.
Not as many dark blues. And the other thing that's fascinating about this new data set is it seems a lot smoother. There's not as much contrast grid to grid.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us why that might be?
It's just a methodology, and without going into details, because we've done some work on the details.
Yeah, we have.
I think that not being a scientist, I will screw it up. But they look at the data differently, and they kind of smooth it out more. They are supposedly going to use more weather stations than the CPC did, and so it spits out different data. Where you're really going to notice this is in some mountainous regions where we have what they call snow-tail sites. These are NRCS weather stations meant to forecast runoff. The problem is those weather stations, and there's a great graph on this, they keep putting them at higher and higher elevations because they're trying to capture snow back. Well, when this program started, you used to have weather stations at the airports in the small communities. When you take it from 4,000 feet to 10,000 feet, you inherently get more moisture. The CPC did not account for that. So those grids that had snow-tail sites really became uninsurable.
Especially in the winter.
Yeah, in the winter, very inaccurate. So what you had was the winter was uninsurable. Producers were insured, a lot in June and July because it was the only month where the readings were semi-accurate. That changes here. That's a big plus.
Great. Brandon, we've talked a lot of technical jargon today here. What are some main points if you're sitting down with a producer today? What would you tell them, make sure you do or don't do as you prep for next year's PRF season?
I would treat it as if it's your first year in PRF. I would call in August ahead of time and try to sit down and look at your operation. Look at every single parcel of land that you could possibly insure. Treat it as if you're starting over again with PRF. Don't wait till the end. And most certainly, some agents get lazy. They send out these renewal packets in August, early September, and say, hey, sign this, and we'll talk later. Don't sign it. That's a bad deal. You've got to tell your agent, they're going to drive out to your house. You're going to sit down at the kitchen table, and you're going to start from scratch, and you're going to compare the old with the new. And my gut says in a lot of cases, you're going to end up with a very different program. New land will be insured. Maybe you'll look at your coverage level. Maybe you'll look at your intervals. All those things. I do think at the end of the day, for most people, your premium is going to go down. Let's call it 10%. But I would take advantage of the time we have right now. Frankly, I'd call Ranchers Insurance because they have the information that others don't have. Look, if you're hearing about this information on this video for the first time, that should tell you something.
Give us a call.
We'd love to sit down. But regardless of who you work with, treat it as if it's your first sign up. Don't delay your agent. Sit down and have them write you a new policy that reflects the new world we live in.
To your point, I met with a producer last week. The grid that we used to insure, we're not going to insure anymore. We're going to move all of his acres to 2 other grids that he's able to insure. Very, very different policy. No auto renews this year, right?
No. If any agent does an auto renewal, they're doing a disfavor to their client, a real disfavor.
Anything else before we part ways here?
Switching topics just a little bit on PRF, but we've talked about it before. USDA is talking more and more about what they perceive as program abuses. They don't perceive them, they are program abuses.
Right.
You know, people out west in particular, you have some people going around basically telling people, if you will do this program, if you'll do PRF, we'll cover half your premium, or we'll cover your premium if you have to pay a premium, we want half the indemnities, give or take, right? That's a bad deal.
Right.
USDA is more and more talking about it, more and more concerned about it. They've issued a bulletin that couldn't be clearer. It's illegal. It's illegal. And my concern with this is, because they're talking about it in Washington, it puts a bullseye on PRF. And the people who are peddling this need to stop. The people who are doing it, the producers who hopefully are watching this video, need to stop. They're putting it at jeopardy for everybody else. And it used to be that they could talk about some gray area. There was never a gray area, but they talked about a gray area. USDA couldn't have put out more clear guidance, and that kind of crap needs to stop.
All right, Brandon, appreciate your time, and give us a call, guys.
Thank you very much. Look forward to visiting with you this fall.